The Bulls are now on a 4-game winning streak. Kobe White's breaking records for the Chicago Bulls with three-pointers made, and the Bulls and DeMar are apparently still far apart on the deal, and the Bulls may be looking to trade him if they can't come to a contract extension. We're going to talk about all that, plus diving into the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So the Bulls are now on a 4-game winning streak, and throughout this 4-game winning streak, there's been a couple of things that have been evident for the Chicago Bulls. Playing as a team, playing with heart, spreading the ball around, and just overall execution on both sides of the ball. And the game yesterday against the Spurs was a tale of two halves. The Bulls were down by 11 points in the first half of that game. And we've seen a lot of times with that the Bulls just aren't able to have the consistent heart to really dig themselves back in the game and get the victory. We've seen, the Bulls get leads closer, right? Like that, but just not have enough to kind of get over the top and still win the games. That was not the story last night for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls came in and they took care of business. Also, the Spurs didn't shoot the ball as well. They were on fire in the first half of that game from behind the three-point arc. But listen, the way that the Bulls played with heart, even when the Bulls were down 11 points, they were still playing with heart in that game. And it was really good to see the Bulls execute in that manner. And overall, over this 4-game winning streak right now, the Chicago Bulls, when you look at it, they're 4th in the NBA in clutch offense and 3rd in clutch net rating. What does that mean? When the game is tough and tight, the Bulls are actually playing better in those situations than what they were early in the season. And it's refreshing to see a Bulls team execute in that manner. And so when you look at the way that this team has been playing, yes, Alex Caruso went down. Wait and find out if it's going to be anything long-term. The Bulls don't play again until Monday, so they got a couple of days off in that to really get, everybody healthy and kind of back on the right page, albeit except Zach LaVine and, of course, Lonzo Ball. But the way that this team has just been fighting has just been really good to see. And, even a couple of people in the chat compared it to the Baby Bulls era. And that was a team that, didn't have like the superstar level talent, but it was a deep team, a team that competed, a team that fought hard. And it's been really good to see, specifically the play of like Patrick Williams in yesterday's game, just being aggressive literally from the start. 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and 20 points from Patrick Williams on only 11 shots that he shot in the game. 4 players scoring in 20 points. Kobe White as well, 9 of 15 from the field, a much better second half, 5 of 7 from three-point lane, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 24 points from Kobe White. And then Ayo Dosunmu, who didn't have the scoring output, only 4 points from him, did some really good things defensively, off the ball, getting out in transition, things like that. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. It's good to see these 3 young players really come in, and I got to give Billy Donovan credit for at least 3 out of these 4 games in this win streak. Billy Donovan has coached an excellent game, and I have to give the man credit for that, even me being one of his biggest critics. And so, like, hearing this Bulls team and, their net rating, we already talked about a couple of episodes ago how over this stretch, the Bulls offense has been elite, right? Top 10 in the league over this stretch. If they were able to do this over the course of a whole season, they would be in a lot of the categories: points per game, field goal shooting percentage, 3-point shooting percentage. This team is just rocking and rolling right now, and understandably is now asked this question: is how does this really affect Zach LaVine's trade value? Which is a story that we'll continue to talk about as things to go on. But it gets more difficult for the Bulls. And while it's great that this Bulls team is on this 4-game winning streak, it's good to be able to talk about Bulls wins, especially after the 5-game losing streak that they were on prior to that. It gets tougher next week, right? We don't have the easy competition next week. It's really tough now from now until January. And so we're going to really get to look at this new look Chicago Bulls team and how this new play style is, how successful they can be against some of the better teams in the NBA. We got Milwaukee on Monday, Denver Tuesday, the defending champions, 2 games against Miami, Philly, who's always had trouble beating, LA, San Antonio again. We'll see how that ends up playing out for us. Cleveland, Atlanta, Indiana, and Philadelphia. That ends this year for the Chicago Bulls as far as the calendar year of 2023. And those are all really tough games. But I tell you what, the games I'm excited to see how this Bulls team, with the style of play that they've been playing now, how they're going to compete in that and how they're going to perform. But it's left so much positivity with that. Now, we talked about Kobe White. Right now, Kobe White is tied for 5th in the NBA of number of three-pointers made, 68 three-pointers made on the season so far from Kobe White. Kobe White's growth has been one of the most positive stories outside of like the DeMar, the Zach LaVine trade, the injuries, things like that. One of the biggest positive stories that you can pull out of the season is Kobe White is growing. And, like I said before, so many people doubting Kobe coming into the season with the play of the Chicago Bulls early on, saying things like Kobe shouldn't be a starter. He's not a starter. Hell, even coming into the season, what did I say? I wanted to see Javon Carter win that starting point guard position over Kobe White. But Kobe is now shown and shut up almost all of his doubters with his play. And it's not just about the three-point shooting or the big scoring performances. Defensively, the drawing charges, growing as a leader, the communication. Kobe White is rounding out to an extremely solid player overall, and it's left many people to ask, could Kobe White even get on the most improved player of the year list as far as in that category? And I'll tell you what, if he keeps up his recent play over the last month or so, he's definitely going to be getting votes for that. Now, will he win? I always really go back to you kind of got to be on a team that's really kind of winning to do that, but I do think that Kobe White could very well be on that ballot for most improved player of the year. For him to win, we'll end up seeing if that ends up being the case. It comes to storylines, things like that as well. Right now, the biggest storyline with the Chicago Bulls is Zach LaVine, so that's kind of it. But I will say this as well. I want to say this. Once Zach LaVine is moved, if Kobe White keeps playing like this, people are going to start talking about, well, in the absence of Zach LaVine, Kobe White has turned into this, and he could ride that storyline with his solid play, maybe into a conversation for most improved player of the year. So don't count Kobe out yet. We'll end up seeing where it goes, but Kobe White's play has just been amazing to see, and I, for one, love to see Kobe White play in this manner, and hopefully it continues for him. But with that said, we actually got some things that are not so good. Well, it depends on how you look at it. So Chris Haynes, who works for Bleacher Report and TNT, I believe, said that the Chicago Bulls and DeMar DeRozan are still far apart on an extension, and it is likely that they may look to move DeMar DeRozan if a contract extension can't be agreed upon. Now, I do think that that's probably the best bet for the Bulls and for DeMar DeRozan. I get what DeMar has meant here, and I know a lot of Bulls fans hold on to this thought that, well, you got to have DeMar here. He has to stay here. It's not Zach or whatever else it is. But when it comes to it, I think the Bulls are at a place with going into the next version of this team where you don't want to lose almost any assets for anything. And I said the same thing about Alex Caruso. I would love the Bulls to be able to extend Alex Caruso and him just stay here. But if there's any inclination that he's not going to stay here, not this year, they can worry about that at next trade deadline. I think you do have to move him for whatever the assets available are. I have the same opinion about DeMar DeRozan. If he's able to agree to a team-friendly contract, which it seems like that's not going to be the case since they're far apart on years and money still reportedly, you have to evaluate what assets you can get back. Now, is it going to be a lot? Probably not. Yeah, DeMar DeRozan, a $20 million contract, so you're going to have to match salaries on that. But if you can get anything back, whether it be a young piece, whether it be a heavily protected first, a couple of seconds, right? I think at this point, you may have to evaluate making that move and pulling the trigger on that move rather than let him walk for nothing. And so it's not really too surprising of an aspect for me or thing that the Bulls, especially with how things have gone, that they may be looking at and saying, hey, we can't really, we're not in a place to keep losing players for nothing, considering what we gave up to build this team. It didn't work, and you may have to look at that. Now, do I hope that DeMar DeRozan and the Bulls can reach an extension? I mean, I'm kind of two minds for him. In some ways, I can understand it. In other ways, it's like, what's the point of keeping DeMar if we're going to be this team that is kind of a pseudo-rebuilding? But again, I do think that this front office is going to be a front office that wants to try to always compete for playoff or at least play in positioning. And because of that, they may be apt to bring DeMar DeRozan back. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. When you hear that the Bulls are still quite far apart on a DeMar DeRozan extension, are you of the mind of, let's go ahead and move him. Whatever we get back, it's a plus rather than losing for nothing? Or do you think, hey, just let him walk, let it go to its natural conclusion? We can use our full mid-level exception next year. We can do some other things. Let me know what you guys think on that. It'll be interesting to see how you guys feel on that. But with that said, we got 6 voicemails to get into today. Let's go ahead and get into the first one. This one is from first-time caller Brett.
Hey guys, it's Brett from Melbourne, Australia. Love the show. Just started watching. I've got one question for you. We've done the whole young guys, had some veterans. We've done it over and over again. And I think it's time that we blow this thing up. But keep it young, trade for younger guys that are on the up. But I'm curious to hear your take. Is that where you think the team's going? Is that what you would do if you were in the big seat? Thanks, man.
All right, is the team going to blow it all up, and should they? Here's my thought process on that. I don't think blowing it all up is coming, and I've kind of talked about what the differences in those is. Blow it all up to me means you're trading everybody back, you're getting all assets back, and seeing where the chips fall. You're just going to embrace being bad for a while, which is very similar to a rebuild. Going rebuild isn't necessarily the same as blowing it all up. You can rebuild without blowing everything up. You keep a lot of your same pieces. You kind of move forward and say, hey, listen, we're going to try to build this thing back up to where we were before. It's going to take some time, whereas blowing it all up is like basically going scorched earth. And then it's what I think this front office is going to do, and they're going to retool on the fly, which may mean, hey, we're still going to maybe get worse and our own draft selections are going to get better, but it could also mean that we're still going to try to put a team on the floor that is at least fighting for something. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to make the play-in, right? They still may be a play-in team or miss the play-in and be a lottery team, but it may very well mean that, we're going to try to get to the play-in. If we can't, cool, we'll be in the lottery. If we can, better, more for that. So I think that's kind of the way that it's going to go with this team, in my opinion. Now, what do I think they should do? I've gone back and forth on it, right? I think when you look at these young players, and Patrick Williams, Kobe White specifically, stepping up in the way they have, with players like Ayo Dosunmu showing a lot as well, players like Julian Phillips showing a little bit of things, I would love to see those guys get more minutes and have to be a part that Billy Donovan uses in the rotation to just continue to grow their game. But I also, seeing the Bulls play and fight like this has been fun to see. And, having veterans like a Torrey Craig and Javon Carter and Andre Drummond have been important in that as well, too. So, I go back and forth on it. I'm not even going to hold you, but I don't think that this team is going to go full rebuild, in my personal opinion. But, hey, I could be wrong on that one. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is from Known Sage.
Yo, Hayes, it's No Sage again for your mailbag. Happy birthday, monster. I really appreciate you keeping the content going. I know this year has been a struggle for you losing some fam and just you staying in tune with us. So we really appreciate you keeping it as positive as you can. Hey, I got some random quick thoughts here. So super sad that we're not going to see the in-season tournament floor, the C-Red floor. I actually took my 8-year-old to that game that they played against the Magic where Caruso had some decent three-pointers and Kobe had an amazing dunk. So he loves red. That was his favorite color. Awesome moment. But look, I was thinking about, is the big three going to now be P. Will, Ayu, and Kobe? And I say that because, I can't really think of too many big threes, like Bosh, Bron, and Wade, the heels, I guess. I mean, I'm just loving that the mid-three now is kind of taking a back seat, and I'm just hoping that this new core three or core 3 2.0 will emerge and extend. Because on a quick rant topic, like growing up in the hip-hop generation, you always have the duos, right? EPMD, MOP, UGK, I digress. But the trios, I don't know. Trios have to be where it's at. Basketball, hip-hop, and anything, I would say. So that's about it. Thanks again. Keep it going.
Ayo, Kobe, and P. Will, the new core three. I think in a way that's kind of what we're going to see depending on how things move forward, right? Unless you get a piece back from in the Zach trade that kind of upends that. But I do think we're going to see a place in which those three players are not necessarily, I don't know if core three is the right word, but those three players are players that are definitely prioritized in whatever the next version of the team is, especially P. Will and Kobe. I think Kobe, for one, has definitely shown that he deserves to be a linchpin in what you're kind of building, maybe even looking at some pieces that kind of can kind of complement him in what you do going forward and maybe drafts, things like that. But either way, this team, until they get a true superstar or a player ascends to that, they should constantly be in a place of trying to get the most chances to get that, to bring that into the team. Because while I love what Kobe's done, I don't know if I've seen the superstar level ceiling in that even in his play. But hey, maybe I could be wrong in that. We'll end up seeing. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Shay.
Yo, Hayes, what's up, man? Look, man, I've been hearing these trades about Jonathan Kuminga and Zach LaVine to the Golden State Warriors, which I don't think this is going to happen. But if I were the Chicago Bulls, you know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be trying to hit up the Toronto Raptors and trying to bring OG Anunoby over here, or Scotty Barnes, or maybe both of them. Look, I know that that's a stretch, but when you think about it, Toronto ain't really got no all-star. Ain't really got no all-star. You could say Pascal Siakam, whatever. If he is an all-star, I can't remember. But I think you might. But I do hear them trying to move on, more so from OG more times than not. So I would try to bring OG Anunoby or Scotty Barnes, or maybe I could bring them both. That's why I'm saying or. Not 9 times out of 10, we're probably not going to get both of them, but I feel like we could at least get one of those guys and bring them down here. And plus, you don't know if DeMar DeRozan is going to be back in Chicago after this season. So OG Anunoby would be a perfect fit next to Patrick Williams and improved defensive Kobe White and Alex Caruso, since he has one more year. Hopefully we convince him to stay, and then he could help out Vooch a lot more, you know what I'm saying, on defensive end, on the perimeter. Look, man, I'm not saying that OG Anunoby is the end-all, be-all, and maybe Scotty Barnes might be a much better fit than him, but if that's one place I would look to move Zach LaVine to, it's the Toronto Raptors, because you could either get one of those guys, OG or Scotty Barnes, or maybe both of them. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
OG Anunoby or Scotty Barnes. I don't think that the Raptors are in a place where they're trying to give up Scotty. OG is definitely somebody who I think we've heard, and that what we've heard a lot is that he's available. 26 years old, and I know people are going to say, well, he can't replace with Zach. You're not going to get a one-for-one replacement for Zach LaVine. But what OG Anunoby does bring is a defender, right? Somebody who can score a little bit, right? He's the most points he's ever averaged in his career was 17 points per game. That was back into the 2021-22 season. But also, he's a solid enough three-point shooter, right? 37% for his career. This season so far, he's averaging 38%. He's been as high as 39%. So a solid enough three-point shooter, albeit not a huge volume. He averages 4.5 three-point shots per game. He's taking the second most three-pointers this season at 6.4 and averaging 38.8%. So that's solid. It's not anything earth-shattering or anything like that. And I do think that you can slide him in there, maybe even at the 3 if you move on from DeMar, and things could work out. So OG Anunoby is not a bad target. The thing you have to question, though, is how does it work for both sides? Does Zach LaVine bring what the Toronto Raptors are really looking for from that team? And while some Raptors fans are for it, some are against it. You got to end up seeing. I do think that the Raptors and the Bulls are the two teams that kind of NBA teams are waiting to see if they're going to kind of blow it all up. So if they end up making a move together, maybe that they can kind of fix that for each other. But, we'll end up seeing what happens in that. But I don't think OG is a bad target at all. Again, not the perfect one. I know a lot of Bulls fans, like I said, kind of the more knee-jerky ones are going to say, but he's not the scorer Zach is. But, hey, you're trying to round out Kobe White and is turning into a scorer, so maybe you don't need that same type of scorer next to Kobe White, and OG Anunoby can play small forward. He's played some shooting guard, not a huge hell of a lot too, but I think small forward is the best role for him. But then you also committed at that point to P. Will at the 4, and then what does that mean for Julian Phillips and his future there, right? So, those are some questions that I'm glad I don't have to answer, but as far as just the baseline, OG Anunoby is a solid enough talent on a solid enough deal too. Like, his contract isn't crazy. He's $18 million this year. He has another year on his contract after this of $19.9 million. So under $20 million there, which we've already talked about, isn't a huge number in where the cap is going. You would have to immediately kind of work out a contract extension for him, or maybe even move him again next year. But hey, could be. You're not attaching long-term, not the same money for Zach LaVine. If they can match with expiring contracts or things like that, that is a deal that could get done. I guess we'll see. All right, let's get into this next one. This one's from Quentin from Let's Talk Bulls.
What's up, Hayes? This is Quentin from Let's Talk Bulls. I just wanted to leave another voicemail. I wanted to talk to you about something that I've been thinking about after the last couple of games, and this game going in to play the Hornets. If the Bulls win this game against the Hornets, when you look at the way they've been playing, Kobe has stepped up. He's hitting more threes. Patrick looks more aggressive. And this team really looks like they're trying to get out on the fast break and really play for each other. They're passing to the open man and trying to make sure they're making the right shots, but focusing on also being confident in taking open shots if they see them. When you look at that, and let me preference this because I know Bulls fans like to take things to the next extreme, but do you think that maybe as a fan base, we are overjudging Billy Donovan on a team that just wasn't built for his play style? It's starting to see that the way they play right now is more into the type of way that Billy would love his team to play. We have a lot of guards playing. They're all playing fast-paced, and they're all doing the things that he's been talking about. Is this something where now that Zach is gone, we're starting to see that maybe it wasn't all Billy and more of just the roster not gelling well enough to play the way he wants to play? Do you think Zach was holding us back, or do you think it is all Billy? Love to hear your thoughts. As always, I'll see you next time.
This is a question that I've heard a lot of people ask, right? Have we overjudged Billy Donovan? Here's what I'll say, no, because it's not just about what he's just done here with the Chicago Bulls. I still think The rotations have still been bad. Adjustments have still been bad. We're now looking at the offense. I do think the offense is flowing a lot better, but I think that that's what we wanted to do coming into the season. That's not necessarily Billy Donovan's default system either. I just think you have players now that are young, hungry, athletic, getting a chance to get out in transition and run, getting the ball in their hands, and that's why you're seeing, I don't necessarily think the coaching style of Billy Donovan is best necessarily, like we haven't had that. I think his style is that he always relies heavily on his superstar players, and that's when he's best at. But I think that Billy Donovan still coached some really good games here recently, and I can do that. But I don't know if, and we don't know what the Zach LaVine trade is going to net us back, but I don't necessarily think that we can say that it's best suited for Billy Donovan's system, but they are executing, especially defensively. And when you got a lot of long athletic players out there that then are getting out in transition, it's going to make it look better. But Billy Donovan has coached better. I can give him that. He's definitely coached better over this last stretch. But guys, let me know what you guys think down below. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Thomas.
What's up, Hayes? My name is Thomas. I'm from the D.C. area. I got two quick questions pending this upcoming Zach LaVine trade and the news of him being shut down. I'm curious your thoughts on, could there be a possibility that the league or Adam Silver and management investigates the Bulls shutting down Zach LaVine this early? I understand there could be a framework for a deal. I understand that, the other team may want him to be healthy, but with the new rules about players playing, the optics of what it would look like for Zach LaVine to be shut down, then traded, and then end up playing right away once he gets to his new team. Just a thought. The other piece is, I see so many horrible trades on Twitter. I know you do too, as far as Zach LaVine. But what are the possibilities that this trade could end up being a 3-team trade? I think we've seen a lot of trade possibilities just, that we have created out of thin air. Not a lot look like they bring back good returns, but a lot of that is just people putting trades in the trade machine. But what do you think the likelihood of, possibility of a 3-team trade so that they can get better assets back? That's it. Look forward to a response if possible. All right.
No, the league can investigate, because keep in mind, the new rule of sitting players is for nationally televised games. The Chicago Bulls, guess what they don't have? A lot of nationally televised games. Matter of fact, the next time we're nationally televised isn't until January 3rd on ABC against the New York Knicks. So that, I don't think, is going to be something that we have to worry about as being investigated for sitting Zach LaVine. Also, there's a legitimate medical reason as well, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. Now, as far as the second part of your question, could the Zach trade end up being a 3-team trade? I think that that's probably more likely than what a lot of people are realizing, because the Bulls only have one open roster spot. Considering that Zach LaVine's contract is over $40 million, most teams are going to have to send 2, 3, maybe even 4 players back in the Zach LaVine trade, unless the Bulls plan on, I've seen attach Terry Taylor, which isn't a big deal, right? You're opening up an additional roster spot, but then at that point, you can still only take 3 players back in the Zach LaVine trade. So I do think that there is a chance that it turns into a 3-team trade. It just depends on what that partner is and how many contracts they need to send out to match the salary of Zach LaVine. But there is definitely a possibility of that happening. I just don't know if it's likely right now, I guess is the way to answer that. But it can definitely happen. And that's typical of a contract that's the size of Zach LaVine's. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Jamal.
What's up, Hayes? It's your boy Jamal back again. Another voicemail for you. I got 3 minutes, so get into it, man. Of course, the Bulls are currently on a 4-game winning streak. I never thought I'd see that come anytime this season. The way that we've been playing, which has been straight ass for the majority of this season, I didn't even think there'd come a time when we can say that we'd ever get on a 4-game winning streak. But somehow, in some way, we actually ended up on that winning streak. It's real interesting right now. Of course, the biggest thing that is going to be on everybody's mind is, well, we're doing this without our 200-plus man, Zach LaVine. He's been out this entire time, and yet we found a way to win 4 games straight without him. And that's a real interesting, dilemma at this moment in time. Of course, there's going to be people who are going to say things like, see, this is why we do need to trade Zach. He was never that important. to begin with, yada, yada, yada. Let's keep in mind that out of the 4 games that we played, let's say, I want to say 3 of them were against, no, actually maybe all 4 of them. No, 3 of them were against, like, damn near bottom feeders. I mean, New Orleans is pretty good, but then you got Charlotte and San Antonio, and then the Bucks, right? The Bucks is great. New Orleans is pretty good, but then you got Charlotte and San Antonio. So it's really an interesting dilemma when you think about it. In this time, we've seen Patrick Williams kind of improve his play. Toby Wright has improved his play. Vucevic seems to be coming into his own. And then New Orleans, and then DeMar DeRozan seems to be fitting in. The only one that looks like the odd man out is Zach LaVine. I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't want to just say go ahead and trade Zach and forget the rest. Because I'm gonna be honest, I'm biased. I like Zach LaVine. I'm a big fan of his, but I don't get paid to make these type of decisions. It's gonna be interesting to see, if Zach comes back and they're able to get some chemistry going and get on the road. If the Bulls can maintain, some level of winning or play better with Zach in there, or if he does come back and realize that he is the reason why we're losing. Only time will tell. So it's gonna be interesting to see where we go from here moving forward. But congrats to the Bulls in 4 games. I'm proud of y'all. Let's see what y'all can do in the next game against the Bucks again. Anyway, be red, go Bulls. Peace.
All right, so listen, great points from Jamal as always, and I love when Jamal calls in because it just comes down to the realistic part of it. Like, this team is playing much better over a 4-game winning streak, right? And it feels good, it seems good, and everything. Like, the team all playing involved in it. As far as like, are they playing better just because Zach's not there? I'm not going to put it just on that. I do think that it's also because everybody's involved in the game plan now, right? You're not getting, when you have a player that averages basically 18 to 20 shots per game and that goes away, it's opening up so many more opportunities for other players because it's not just one player stepping in for the Bulls that are getting those shots that Zach LaVine is getting. Yes, Kobe's getting more, but he was already getting some shots because he was a starter, right? So it's opening up more for Patrick Williams. It's opening up more for Ayo, for Torrey Craig to get more shots, things like that. And that's really helping the Chicago Bulls team be a little bit more difficult to guard as well in that time. So, yes, difficult stretch of games coming up for the Chicago Bulls for sure. And it's going to be hugely interesting to see how they now compete with much better competition that they're going to be going up against. But I think when it comes down to it, the expectation, if you think that the Bulls are going to keep up this level of play, I need to see it for longer. But I tell you what, if we come out of the next week stretch, if we come out of those 4 games next week, and we're still talking about a Bulls team that, and again, it's not about wins. It's not necessarily me just saying if this win streak continues, but if they keep playing with this level of heart, determination, and pushing teams by that alone, the heart that they play with, at that point, I think it is time to start saying, hey, this could be a Bulls team that still makes the play-in without Zach LaVine. And that's crazy to say. So let me know what you guys think on all that, as always, down below. Thank you so much for those that left the call. And make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.